So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Zoomed In on Real Estate. My name is Danielle Smith. I'm the VP of Administration here. I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Leslie Sandberg, who is our Government Affairs Director, and Charlotte Green from Cape and Coast Bank. Thank you for sponsoring our Zoomed In on Real Estate.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Wonderful to be.
Upcoming programs, just a few housekeeping things before we move into our main program today. So upcoming continuing education, we only have 2 more months left in the year, which is crazy to think. But we have a couple of online webinars in November and December. If you need to get your Code of Ethics or your Fair Housing training completed, you can do those in December online via Zoom. We do always have our on-demand classes. The 2 that we have, MAR has on-demand classes. So if you're looking to renew your license and you need those CE credits, we do have these upcoming classes available to you. We have a ton of upcoming MLS training. So CRS Data, which is our new MLS tax suite. We have some in-person training scheduled for this week, the 5th and 6th, so Wednesday and Thursday at our office here in West Yarmouth. So we'll just go into it here. Wednesday, 11 a.m. We have one at 1 p.m. and then 3 p.m. And then Thursday, it looks like we have 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and I thought there was one more, maybe, perhaps not. So in-person trainings on our new MLS tax suite. Please register so that we know that you're coming. We'll be ready for you here at the office. We also have a couple of deposit link demos and then a Remind Docs training on the 12th. So upcoming things there and a few more here with our quick dip on the 13th about stats. So please register for that if you're interested. And a couple more CRS Data trainings as well. QB Casa to learn about floor plans, and then Rate Plug. So a bunch of MLS opportunities there coming up. So upcoming initiatives. So this is our annual Welcome Home Gift Basket Drive that benefits Housing Assistance of Cape Cod. This is where we provide our membership with laundry baskets to fill with household items. So this is to benefit people who are transitioning from an unstable housing situation to a more permanent, stable housing situation. So they need things like sheets or kitchenware, towels, mops and brooms. So those sort of things that can help them get their new housing situation off on a good foot. So we have a ton of baskets here at our office for pickup, or we can come by your office and drop them off. Please reach out to Pat Pry. So her email here is on the screen to request a basket. And we can arrange for you to either come here to the office to pick those up, or we can drop them off. So that happens from this month into early December, and then we gather all the baskets here at our office and bring our community engagement group will bring everything over to HAC to present them with all of the donations. So it's a really great cause, and we get a ton of baskets every year. Last year we had over 65 baskets, which was great. Our office was spilling over with goods, so please keep this in mind over the next month or so, and please reach out to Pat if you'd like to request a basket. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Charlotte Green, who is our sponsor with Cape and Coast Bank, formerly the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod. So Charlotte, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I'm just going to request to share my screen briefly. And yeah, Charlotte Green with the Cape and Coast Bank. I'm still training myself to say our new and updated name, which we're super excited about. It represents who we are in our community and who we're committed to, our customers on the Cape and beyond on our coastlines and out into the rest of Massachusetts, where we do lend and do a lot of business. And are very excited to be bringing that out into the community.
Great. Thanks, Charlotte, for being here.
Yeah, we continue to be rooted in local. And so I wanted to give a little bit of a local lender insight on some customer and rate trends that we've been seeing. We were talking in the pre-call about the perfect timing of this meeting today because the Federal Reserve met last week and that did have an effect on interest rates. So we wanted to give you a little bit of an update on that so you can keep your customers in the loop on how things have been going.
You should be able to share now if you need.
Okay, I thought I was. Oh,
You're not alone, Charlotte.
I'm on a new computer. It's
It's a
fun.
Monday.
Yeah. Am I sharing, Danielle? Are you seeing
I
it?
don't see it now.
Okay, here we go.
Okay,
There you
there
go.
we go. Perfect.
I taught people through how to share their screen all day, and here I am struggling to do it myself. It was all teed up to begin with. Okay, I'm hoping you guys are seeing my screen.
Good now. Yep.
Perfect, thank you. Right, so starting out with some buyer trends, what we're seeing on the financing side of those home buyers who are financing across Cape Cod and Massachusetts. As you all know, there was some new regulation that came out on home inspections that cannot be waived as part of making an offer or accepting an offer. Leading up to that, and I would say over the past 6 to 12 months, we have seen a lot more scrutiny with our home buyers on the outcomes of home inspections. We're seeing more and more deals kind of fall out due to home inspection issues. Customers are being very thoughtful about repairs that might need to be made to their property after they buy it, and other items that are just affecting their ability to really move in and have the home be ready versus having additional expenses that they need to handle after closing. Something that we're seeing a return of are seller concessions, which I always have found a really interesting way to help people get into homes. Typically, we're seeing that in the primary residence realm, but we're seeing it a little bit more in the second homes as well, and less so in investment properties. Traditionally, seller concessions are used to cover closing costs. I think that's the most basic way people think about them. But we're seeing a new trend of people using those seller concessions to help buy their interest rate down. And I wanted to share a graphic with you all of what that might look like for someone, assuming a 10% down payment. Using a $750 purchase price, someone who took that seller concession and applied it to their closing costs at a 6% interest rate would be paying just under $4,300 a month between their principal, interest, and mortgage insurance. If someone used that seller concession to buy their rate down to 5.75%, their payment would drop over $130 on a monthly basis. So for your cost and monthly payment conscious home buyers, this could be a really interesting approach to structure how you come into making offers. And taking a look also at that end monthly payment, because that's often what we're qualifying people towards, either A, what we determine you can afford, or B, what someone says, all right, Charlotte, you told me I can afford $750. I'm more comfortable with a $700 price range. So for someone who's really focused in on an end payment, utilizing a seller concession to drive down their interest rate can help increase their purchase price. So this example of buying the rate down by a quarter point, increase their buying power by $15,000 without affecting their monthly payment. Now, this is not including any taxes and insurance. I just wanted to do a really baseline apples to apples comparison for everyone on what those down payments might look like, as well as the effect on the interest rate on the mortgage payment at the end of the month. Moving into a little bit of the Federal Reserve meeting recap. So last week we had the second rate cut in a row at the Federal Reserve meeting. There was one that took place in September. I feel like I'm preaching this, but I will continue shouting it from the rooftops because we always get the question. The Fed dropped rates, so you guys are dropping your mortgage rates, right? The Federal Reserve doesn't directly control mortgage rates. It sets short-term rates that banks change with each other for overnight loans. So it impacts things like home equity lines of credit and credit card interest rates. It indirectly affects mortgage rates. So what people are expecting the Federal Reserve to do, along with the overall financial conditions in the market, are what affect our long-term interest rates. Coming into the meeting last week, a 25 basis point rate cut was all but guaranteed. There was a lot of anticipation about a 50 basis point rate cut. Mortgage rates did drop ahead of the meeting last week in anticipation of that rate drop. Hopefully my graphic shares now that I click. Okay. So we are right now seeing some of the lowest rates we've seen in the last few years. So as a point of comparison, here's where we were the end of October last year, around 6.7, and we're closing out October in the very low sixes. We are seeing some customers who are getting into those sub-6 interest rates, especially in that primary residence buyer realm, where there are some options for reduced pricing adjustments due to loan to value and property type, which help keep the interest rate a little bit lower. This also indicates the drop in September right here in mortgage rates ahead of the September Federal Reserve meeting. After that meeting, rates spiked up a little bit, as you can see here, just due to market uncertainty about future rate cuts. So as the market gets uncertain about future rate cuts, interest rates trend up ahead of those decisions even being made. And with heavy anticipation of rate cuts here that we saw in September and the end of October, interest rates come down, tailing into those meetings. So as I said, going into this meeting, a 50 basis point total rate drop was somewhat expected, but all but guaranteed for the end of the year. Markets were really banking on this December meeting, seeing that either second cut or even an additional 25 basis points at that on top of 50 in this meeting. We only saw a 25 basis point rate cut, and there was some contention in that meeting with 2 dissenting members of the Federal Reserve actually voting not to cut rates at all in this meeting. The post-meeting press release and meeting minutes release showed us some of that contention and indicated that a 25 basis point rate drop in the early December meeting is not as much of a sure thing as we had initially anticipated. So the interest rates, while not reflected here and probably so marginal that it wouldn't tick up on this graph, we did see a marginal increase towards the tail end of last week in reaction to the meeting minutes coming out and the post-meeting press release. I'm going to share some key factors that drive the federal policy on rates, which are inflation and employment data. And controlling inflation has been the name of the game for the past few years, which is why we see these rates remaining somewhat flat with the Federal Reserve. So black is indicating the federal funds rate and red is indicating mortgage rates over here. Attention recently has been shifting towards employment and unemployment in response to a string of reports suggesting that hiring and wage growth are softening. So the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates or hold them high in order to curb and soften inflation. And then they'll drop interest rates to help with wages and unemployment. Right now, we're in this very interesting limbo where both seem to be a little bit unsteady. And I think they're trying to figure out, how hard they can press the gas with rate drops without affecting inflation. A wave of recent layoff announcements that we heard last week from major employers has certainly heightened concerns about rising joblessness, potentially strengthening the argument for further rate cuts in December. But just to throw a wrench in things and make things a little bit more complicated, the ongoing government shutdown has halted the release of official data on job creation and unemployment. So the policymakers are going to have limited visibility into labor market conditions if this shutdown continues, and depending on when it opens up, if they're able to gather and analyze that data in time of the December Fed meeting. So a lot of uncertainty out there in the air, but I think just for what's going to happen in the future, but great news for what's happening right now. We are seeing some lower interest rates coming into the holiday season. I love the home buyers who always want to get in and buy that house before Christmas, buy your Cape home for the Christmas present, or just be home in a new home for the holidays. We're excited to be helping customers do that and navigating the lending environment here on Cape Cod and beyond, offering loans that are sold on the secondary market, which is really what this kind of volatile chart is indicating, secondary market mortgage rates, as well as offering loans in our portfolio at some really competitive interest rates as well to help people get into homes. Typically, we're looking at those for our unique properties that couldn't be sold to Fannie and Freddie because they don't understand seasonal condos, or that, hey, this is not a multi-unit, it's just a single family home with two accessory buildings on it that are not actually accessory dwelling units, they're secondary dwellings. We've got a fabulous team who I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with across the Cape, and we've got some new lending programs that are going to be coming out in the coming months to be helping our primary residence home buyers, investment home buyers. Nothing really carved out for those second home buyers, but they're really well protected with what we have offering right now. And I was chatting with Danielle and Leslie ahead of this meeting. We're talking about the government shutdown, and I said, Charlotte, how dare you not include a slide about the consumer loans that we've recently rolled out to help government employees affected by this shutdown, doing consumer loans to help bridge the gap while they're not receiving income. So we're doing short-term loans up to 75% of what someone would be earning, up to a $10,000 loan amount, with no collateral, very streamlined and limited qualifying requirements. So if you're aware of someone who's been affected by the government shutdown, please have them reach out to us to see how we might be able to help them bridge that gap of income, as we don't know when they're going to be reopening and getting those paychecks back out to people. As always, any questions, please do feel free to reach out to me about anything within this meeting or any other lending questions you might have, or one of our tremendous loan officers here across the Cape and beyond.
Great.
And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Appreciate that. I will pop your contact information into the chat in just a minute here. But we appreciate you in taking the time out this morning to join us and give us an update on the new Cape and Coast Bank.
Always happy to be here.
Great. And now I will hand it over to Leslie Sandberg, who will be walking us through some town meeting preview. So Leslie, take it away.
Thank you, Danielle. And also, I just want to echo what you said with Charlotte. I mean, her bank has been such a great community member, and so we're lucky to have such a wonderful relationship with them. So now we're on to town meeting. It's, believe it or not, town meeting is as robust now as it is in September, in the spring. I want to apologize in advance. I have a bit of a head cold, so I sound like I'm in a fog, but I look forward to going through this and answering any questions. I'm going to share my screen right now. Let's see right here, and I will share, and then I'm going to now get my presentation going, and we'll go through this. So here we go to a full screen. Here we go. There we go. So, hi everybody. We're talking about advocacy today in your backyard, and this is the fall meeting previews, but it's also going to be some results of what happened, because we had actually town meetings that happened in October, and then now we have some town meetings that are happening November 17th. So, first and foremost, we have our process for decision making and what we look at when we're looking at town meeting warrants. We have a public policy guide that goes through broad issues that occur frequently. A lot of the issues are housing. The issues could also be wastewater, the stretch codes, Also short-term rentals, things like that. And that's available if you want it. I can actually send it out to you, or you can get it on our website. Then we have some of the issues which I just mentioned, short-term rentals, funding for housing, zoning reform, and wastewater. Now, these are the towns with no fall town meeting. And when I talk to the people that are at these towns, checking in with them, they're like, we got everything done in the spring. So on Cape Cod, we have Provincetown, Truro, Eastham, Chatham, Harwich, and Barnstable. And I want to make a note, Barnstable never has a town meeting. They are a town council form of government, but we want to make sure that we always include it as a reminder. Martha's Vineyard, Edgartown, Chilmark, and Aquina did not have town meetings this fall. They did. Everybody had one in the spring. This is different with the fall. Now, towns with September, October town meetings. On Cape Cod, we had Wellfleet, Dennis, Mashpee, and Bourne. On Martha's Vineyard, West Tisbury, excuse me, and Tisbury. I want to let you know, for anybody who lived in these towns, that had warrant articles that were part of what we look at for our public policy priorities. They all received a memo that was sent out to them. So when they were voting, they were informed before they voted. And we'll go through some of the results. This is November town meeting. These are the actual previews. On Cape Cod, it's going to be Falmouth, Yarmouth, Brewster, and Orleans. And then on Martha's Vineyard, it's Oak Bluffs. And then we have the town of Nantucket. I didn't want to put Nantucket and then Nantucket because of the redundancy. So it was the town of Nantucket has one. Now, here's a Wellfleet town meeting results. On Article 9, which passed, they had a home rule petition that expanded the residential tax exemption in Wellfleet. This article will help incentivize year-round housing for Wellfleet residents. A lot of towns are doing this. They're using the residential tax exemption to actually apply to people that rent a home, or even if they don't live in it, that rent a home year-round. So it allows the select board to expand the residential tax exemption to property owners who rent their property on a year-round basis to Wellfleet residents who declare that the property they rent is their principal residence for income tax purposes. And to make sure that you get that done, you have to work with the assessor's office, and it works out. Provincetown also has that, and Wellfleet has now picked it up, which is great. I want to let you know that the residential tax exemption in Wellfleet is 33%. So that's a lot of savings and a good incentive for people to hopefully look to rent their homes year round instead of short-term rentals to help with the housing crisis. All right, that was it. Wellfleet did it, made it happen. So now we have Dennis. Wait a minute, I might just double check. Yep. All right. Now we have Dennis. Dennis had town meetings results. What they did is they approved a 3% community impact fee. This has to do with short-term rentals. The community impact fee applies to professionally managed units of 2 or more short-term rentals in the same town with the same owner. It does not apply to multifamily homes that are the owner's primary residence. Basically, what this is trying to do is put an extra tax on those investors who are buying up properties for short-term rentals, and they have more than one, actually more than two. I take that back. Sorry, I'm going to blame the cold. That actually 2 or more STRs in their same town. This fee is allowed by state law. It is a local option, meaning each town must vote to adopt it. So you have to go to town meeting, get a vote to adopt the 3% community impact fee. Towns are authorized to charge an additional fee up to 3% on top of existing state and local lodging taxes on those properties. For the towns that do accept this 3% community impact fee, only on those short-term rentals that are in this category will have I think 17.5% fee on it. So the revenue must be earmarked for affordable housing or infrastructure projects. Provincetown has this community impact fee, and I can tell you that there's not a lot of money that's been generated with this because we don't have many that are actually 2 or more. We'll see what happens with Dennis, but it's again another way to, I guess, disincentivize investor-owned short-term rentals. Dennis also had, what do I have in here? Passed. I've got. This is Article 20. This was continued, which means they talked about it, but they did not they did not pass it, nor did they, it definitely postponed it. When you continue a town meeting article, that means that you want to keep the issue open for discussion. This was something that if you read in the newspapers was a tad controversial. The residential tax exemption, it was a non-binding measure to non-binding article to measure support. Forgive me for my cough. The residential tax exemption, this is what it does. It lowers the property tax burden for homeowners who use their property as their primary residence. What it does, it reduces assessed value. It's a fixed amount that is subtracted from a qualifying home's total assessed value. So basically what you do is you find out what the median home is and what's the value on that. And depending on what that tax value is, that amount is subtracted from all the homes that participate in the residential tax exemption. This means a lower value is used to calculate a resident's property tax bill. So what it does then, it shifts the tax burden, and it's going to shift the tax burden to second homeowners. This is to make up for the reduced tax base on exempted properties, and all other residential properties are increased. So non-resident property owners, such as those with vacation homes or rental properties, pay a higher tax rate on their full assessed value. I want to make it really clear that this does not create extra taxes. What it does is it shifts whatever the pool is for property taxes in a town. It has second homeowners paying more, and it gives a break to residents who have their primary home in that town. It works well if you've got a lot more second homes than you do primary residence. For instance, it works well in Provincetown because you've got 60% of the homes are second homes. In Truro, it's 67%. In Wellfleet, it's 60%. And in Dennis, the seasonal homes are now 64% of their housing inventory. So when you shift that tax burden to the second homeowners, it's not 35% more that they pay. What we found in Provincetown is that we've got a 35% residential tax exemption. The benefit is 35% for those who are residents, but the people that pay it they're each paying an increase of 8.67% on their property taxes. It's a weird math formula, but this is us to help people stay in homes because the prices of homes are rising. So with it continued, it means that they're going to come back with that at some point in time. So Mashpee town meeting result. Mashpee was very big on wastewater, and this was their signature article that not only passed at town meeting, but it passed at the election, at the ballot. They asked the town to appropriate 25.9 million for a cluster sewer system for the Mashpee Wakeby Pond. The cluster system will stop phosphorus from 200 plus homes from entering the Wakeby Pond. The system will remove 4% of the total nitrogen load from the Papaneset Bay watershed, which will bring Mashpee's nitrogen mitigation levels to 46%, which is fantastic, and it moves Mashpee closer to the state mandate of 75% in 20 years. So it's a good cluster system that they're putting in, and there was some controversy because people said where the town is putting it, it's town land, it was supposed to be open space. Turns out it was supposed to be open space, but they never passed the deed for it. It's going to be underground for the most part, but it's going to be something that's really needed to get the phosphorus out of Wakeby Pond. And Mashpee, because they pass this right now, will receive a state revolving fund. That's what SRF is, a state revolving fund loan with zero financing and a total of 28.3 principal forgiveness. So basically the 25.9 million that they've appropriated, because they did it when they did, they now are going to have the reduction of that. If you take the 29%, if you will, principal forgiveness, and you apply it to that, that means people were paying less than what they appropriated. So the idea was it's 25% that comes from the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund and a 3.3% from the state, which is going to lower the property taxpayer cost. It did have a lot of debate, but it passed again, both at town meeting and at the ballot box. The Bourne town meeting result. Bourne had, because they are what they call an adjacent small town to an MBTA community, which is Wareham and Plymouth, they actually have to comply with the MBTA Community Act. So you have to adopt local zoning provisions to comply with the MBTA Communities Act. What this means in a nutshell is it mandates that Bourne create a 37-acre area for multifamily housing, which is 3 or more units, which is permitted as of right. So what they did is they decided to create a multifamily overlay district, which will be established in the Buzzards Bay downtown district. The allowable density, which is increased because it's to allow housing, it's going to be between 15 to 25 units per acre. Pardon me, and it must be suitable for families with children, and there's no age restriction. The idea is to, if you're any part of the MBTA Communities Act, you're allowed to have increase your density in a certain area of town, and it must be suitable for families with children, and there's no age restriction. Now, the reports that I read about how it went on town meeting floor is that they were pretty upset with it. Basically, there were, I think, 225 attendees at town meeting, and only a half of them voted on it, and it passed by a small measure. The bottom line is it's good that it passed because non-compliance has town new state funding and AG legal actions. There are some towns off Cape that have actually said, we're not getting involved, we're not going to comply with the MBT Community Act. And the Attorney General's office has sued them and they have lost. So that's what happened at Bourne's town meeting. Now, I should ask, does anybody have any questions on the results that occurred at this point in time? Danielle, are there any questions?
I don't see anything in the chat, Leslie. I did put a little note in there to add your questions to the chat.
Okay,
If you
thank
have
you so
any.
much. Appreciate that.
No problem.
So now we're going on to the preview. These are town meetings that are, all these towns are having a town meeting on the same night, which is November 17th. So with Brewster, they have article number 5. It's Community Preservation Act housing appropriations. They're going to basically ask for an appropriation of $105,000 to have it to go to Habitat for Humanity to build 2 modest-style ranch homes on 2 lots that are part of a 1.5-acre parcel on Main Street. So the homes will be sold to households. Again, what's nice is these are homes that will be sold, so it helps people with home ownership whose income is at or below 80% of the area median income, with one home being sold at or below 60% AMI. This is a wonderful opportunity for people in Brewster. There will be a lottery conducted for the homes, by state rules, you have to have a lottery. And then they had another article. Brewster's working on short-term rentals, but they haven't established necessarily a bylaw on it yet, a general bylaw. What they first did with Article 9, or what they want to do, is they want to establish a short-term rental revolving fund. This will create a new revolving fund to separately account for fees collected to support operations of a new registration and/or inspection program for short-term rentals. The state has mandated that short-term rentals need to be annually inspected. So this is a way for them to help pay for it. Basically, it'll allow the town to fund additional staff to help manage the short-term rental program and cover costs related to operating expenses and one-time startup costs, including but not limited to third-party data collection and monitoring of short-term rentals. That's another thing that towns are doing. Not all towns, but some towns have gone into uh, contracts with software programs that actually will scrub the online platforms to find out how many short-term rentals actually exist in your town. And it's a great way to really get a good number for what is the universe for your short-term rentals. If you use Department of Revenue data, a lot of times that Department of Revenue data, there's double counting for existence. If you have your home as a short-term rental and it's on 3 different platforms, it gets counted 3 times. Forgive me one moment. I'm not as bad as I sound, I promise you all, but I apologize for the cold. Then Brewster had Article 10. It's their final report and recommendations of their short-term rental task force. This report recommendations including, they're saying we need to establish a registration, licensing, and inspection program for short-term rentals. They want to adopt administrative and operational requirements by general bylaw and/or regulations, including occupancy requirements consistent with the state law. So that's where, as far as they want to go. They're going to refrain from amending zoning relative to short-term rentals until the MA law is settled. There has been a lawsuit that has occurred in Nantucket that has been a negative, a bad consequence for short-term rentals. And the bottom line is that is being appealed right now from the town. So Brewster's taking a wait and see approach. But they do want to establish, because there are short-term rentals in their town, they want to find a way to register, license, and inspect them. So that's where they are now. And all three articles are articles that I hope if you go there, you would support. They're common sense. Now they have also, Brewster, they're adopting protected accessory dwelling unit language. This is something that a lot of towns did in their Springtown meeting. So Brewster's just catching up. And really what it is, it's designed to update the town ADU zoning bylaw to comply with the Affordable Homes Act signed into law. Basically is to remind you it's ADUs by right in single family residential districts. And it'll bring it in compliance with what the state law is. It came out of the Affordable Homes Act. Now, but what they did is they added something. And again, a lot of these things are technical in nature. They've had accessory commercial dwelling units in Brewster, which I did not know. Again, my apology for my cough. And what they're just doing is they're changing the language. They're getting rid of the language for accessory commercial dwelling units, and they're replacing it with mixed use development language. So 80 ACDUs are dwelling units located within commercial developments on commercially owned lots. And as we said, we're going to eliminate the ACDUs in favor of mixed-use development. This is not a radical change in the zoning law, and it requires at least 30% of the gross floor area of a unit to be commercial use. Residential units on higher floors. Short-term rentals are prohibited. The site plan view for this will be required, and a special permit is needed if more than 3 units on a lot and no more than 6 units per lot. So in other words, they're moving toward a lot of people. What a lot of towns are doing is you have in a commercial area, you have commercial on the ground floor, and then you have residential on top. So and I hope that anyone who goes there would support this. Now, this is Orleans, and they're
So,
starting with. Oh,
sorry, can I
there's a
interrupt
question.
you real quick? Yep, there is a question that came in on Dennis, wondering if Article 10 was age restricted at all.
The Article 10, let's go back to that.
Yep, Dennis.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Scrolling back. There we go. Age restriction. No, there's no age restriction on the residential tax exemption. It's whether or not your property is your primary residence.
Article 10, Leslie, that's 20.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. That an age on this,
Yes,
That's the question.
if there is an age on that. This has to do with professionally managed units of 2 or more short-term rentals. So there, I don't think age has anything to, is not related to that. Maybe I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, it just says, I wondered if the Dennis Article 10 was age restricted at all. Oh,
It
she
is
thinks
not.
it's Article 20. Okay, that
It's
makes
Article
more
20?
sense.
Yeah, this absolutely not. Yeah, there's no age restriction on this at all. It's whether or not you benefit from this if you are a resident of Dennis and this is your primary house is a primary residence. Does that help? Any follow-up from that?
Not that I can see at the moment.
If there's further questions on it, I'm happy to help after this too. So we're gonna just head back, looking at all these things. There's a lot of activity in these towns, isn't there? Here we are. We're at Orleans, I believe. Orleans has a lot of action for this fall. Basically, you know what they just did in Brewster, where they changed the ADUs that are commercial ADUs into mixed use district? This is going to be exactly kind of the same thing. It's a downtown overlay district, and they want to establish a new zoning downtown district overlay to support year-round attainable housing production and mixed-use development in downtown Orleans. This is what a lot of towns are trending and doing. Any development in the downtown housing overlay district shall be deed restricted. 50% of the dwelling units for year-round occupancy. So if you're going to do a development in there, 50% of the dwelling units need to be year-round deed restricted. Now, developments of 10 or more dwelling units need to include 10% of the units for 80% AMI, an additional 50 units as attainable up to 200% of AMI. So this is to try to hit not only affordable, which we call it affordable, was 80% AMI and under, but it also does missing middle, which is 200% AMI and under. So this is a nice move that Orleans is doing to try to attempt to capture more people to make them eligible for housing. And they'll allow, if you do this, an additional building height of 3.5 stories. Right now, their height is at 2.5. So you can add another story if you have a development where all units are restricted, meaning you do 10% affordable, 40% attainable, and 50% year-round. So that's a really nice tool that they want to introduce in Orleans. And this needs a simple majority vote. A lot of people ask with zoning, is it 2/3? Is it simple majority? This is simple majority vote here. Article 3 in Orleans is adopt a specialized stretch code. That would amend the town's general bylaw to adopt the specialized energy code. This allows Orleans to apply for the Commonwealth Climate Leader designation, which provides significant grant funding. The special energy code is the strictest standard that we have for applying the regulating the design and contract of new commercial and residential buildings for the effective use of energy and reduction of greenhouse emissions. Bottom line is they want to actually make the code a lot stricter, and this is something that as a association we do not support. And the reason why we do not support this has to do with the fact that there's a lot of different factors. Is that the cost of actually doing this, we think it's going to hurt building homes. And also the fact that the grid that, they're talking about getting green, let's make sure that we build, to be energy efficient. Well, we have a grid that's 25 years behind. And so our feeling as an association is that really, if you're going to put this on people, you need to make sure that the grid can handle all the electricity that will be coming from this. Orleans is one of a few, I believe, Truro, Wellfleet, and Eastham have the specialized stretch code. Most people are just at the stretch code. So if you are in Orleans, we'd ask you to consider not voting for it. And here again, now this is an affordable housing tax exemption for year-round rental properties. This is not a residential tax exemption. This is a different available exemption. And this is something that's newer. It's vote to adopt a local option provision of Mass General Law, which was implemented by legislation passed in October 2023, that authorizes municipalities to institute an affordable housing tax exemption. This will allow a municipality to provide a tax exemption to residential property owners who rent their units to income qualifying persons at affordable rates on a year-round annual basis. They're going to go in front of town meeting, and if it's approved by town meeting, the select board would set the following: the maximum amount of the exemption that the owner gets, the maximum annual occupant household income, so it's somewhere up to 200% of AMI. They may go in between, they may go all the way up to 200. Hard to say. They'll probably look at what the need is. And they get to set the affordable housing rental rate. So that's something that I think there'll be a lot of discussion on, but it is another way of trying again to open up some housing and give an tax advantage to those who are renting year-round to people. Article 5, Orleans, they're also wanting to adopt a community impact fee. It's the same thing that the other town was looking at. So we'll see what happens there. They're also going to establish a special purpose stabilization fund for affordable housing. This is something where they basically, if Article 5 gets passed, which is that 3% community impact fee, this is where they'll direct the revenue. So once they capture the revenues from a community impact fee, they want to take that money and direct 75% of the revenues to affordable housing and 25% to local infrastructure projects. They're following the law with that too. That's also what the law wants you to do. And then they also want to establish a capital improvement fund. Now, why did I include this? It's because capital improvement can mean wastewater and sewer and things. So what Orleans is trying to do here is they want to create a capital improvement fund that will allow Orleans to set aside money for large projects such as buildings, equipment, or infrastructure. And the infrastructure right there is where we've hit a lot of the sewer infrastructure. And Orleans is going forward with a lot of sewer plans. The money could be added to the fund at town meeting either by raising new revenue or transferring from other available funds. The treasurer would invest the balance so it can grow over time. The fund would continue from year to year, and funds only spent for capital purposes with a vote at town meeting. This gives Orleans a stable, long-term way to save for and pay for major projects. It's I think it's a smart way of looking forward because we are at a point now where a lot of our projects, which we need to do, and towns are willing to do, need funding for it. And Yarmouth is all about PFAS in this for us, is that basically Article 2, they want to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer $100,000 from the PFAS litigation settlement account for engineering and technical services for the evaluation of PFAS contamination in groundwater in the town of Yarmouth. And bottom line is that they're aiming to improve protection from the community for protection for the community from threats related to groundwater contamination, basically from point source locations, but it also includes the Barnstable Gateway Airport and the Barnstable County Fire Training Facility, which we know has unfortunately, through their use, unwittingly added a lot of PFAS to our groundwater. What's great is that Yarmouth is looking to clean it up. Then, two of the wells that have PFAS in them, and they basically want to know if the town will vote to approve and transfer $300,000 from their litigation fund for the design of a PFAS treatment system at wells number 10 and 11. So basically what this is stopgap funding because in April 2025, town meeting approved the design and construction of a PFAS treatment at those wells. However, due to the timing of the state revolving fund reimbursements, the water department is requesting utilization of the PFAS litigation fund to cover the gap for the PFAS treatment until the funding reimbursement becomes available in 2026. So my guess is that'll pass, and we'd like, if you are going to Yarmouth, please vote for both of these because, boy, clean water is important to everybody. Sandwich. Here we are. Now, Sandwich has done protective ADUs, but now they want to expand their accessory dwelling units. So the first bullet here is what is the definition of what an ADU is, which we know is a self-contained housing unit inclusive of sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities on the same lot as a principal dwelling. And here they want to contain up to 80% of the gross floor of the single-family dwelling or 1,500 square foot of the gross floor area, whichever is smaller. For the protected ADUs, they've had 900 square foot of the gross floor area. So this is actually making it larger, which is not a bad thing at all. The requirements are you need to have a special permit. You need to make sure the minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet. You can only have one expanded accessory dwelling unit per lot, one parking space, and short-term rentals are prohibited. And one other restriction is that the owner must reside in the principal dwelling or the EADU, and the remaining property can be rented for 12 consecutive months, no subletting. So that's what they're doing there to, I guess, just allow for larger ADUs and also allowing for a little bit more restrictions and keeping it year round. It's a good idea though. And then what they're also doing is they're creating affordable housing conditional density development. As you see, this is another trend where if you're doing affordable housing, they want to make sure that you can have more density. And towns are doing that because they're trying to play catch up, which makes sense. The Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9, I want to give you where it comes from, allows municipalities to adopt incentive ordinances for the creation of affordable housing. A special permit is needed for an increase in density through a relaxation of dimensional requirements in the Sandwich's protective zoning bylaw. So basically, if you're going to do it, you go in front of the planning board, you'll get a special term permit, and they'll say, okay, because you're doing something that's affordable housing, and it fits all this criteria, we'll relax some of the dimensional requirements. The special permit requires 25% of all units developed on the site be sold or rented and maintained at affordable prices. That'd be 80% AMI and under. 10 developments of this type are allowed annually. And an affordable housing development shall contain no more than 20 units in total, developed at 4 units per 40,000 square feet. So there's a lot of intricacies here, but basically they're trying to, I think, have density, but not make it too crazy so that people will, there'll be a backlash on this density development. So that's also a wonderful tool to help with the housing crisis.
Leslie, did you see the question that came in?
I'm sorry, I can't see
No,
any questions, so I
that's okay.
apologize. Yeah, what's up? What's the
So the
question?
question is, does this eliminate the right for an ADU on a smaller lot with the state's 900 square foot?
No, no. This is something that's in addition to, it does not, you cannot get rid of that. That's state law and that's by right. This isn't by right. This is something where you need a special permit. Any follow-up?
Not that I can see at the moment.
Okay, but if it is, just let me know. Just go ahead and interject because I've got a full screen here with my slides, and I'm sorry that I can't see people's questions.
No worries. I'm keeping an eye on it for you.
You're the best. Thanks so much. So we're going into condensity development, and then again, this is a simple majority for Sandwich, and I'm pointing this out because this is a general bylaw that they're doing in Sandwich to create some kind of guardrails around short-term rentals. They go in here and here you see here's the definition of what a short-term rental is, which is what we all know. So only residents only residents can be short-term rentals. These are the properties that are not eligible as short-term rentals. Affordable housing units, ADUs, or any unit not in compliance with health, building, zoning, or fire codes. So that's pretty common. That's a lot of common sense there. And short-term rentals are required to register with the Sandwich Building Department and get inspected annually. That last bullet is having them comply with the new state regulation. But if you've noticed here, they're not saying how many certificates you need to have. They're just basically saying this is what can be a short-term rental, and this is what's not eligible as a short-term rental. So I think it's pretty renter-friendly bylaw. This is what also is continued here. So and this is when other towns have done this bylaw, this is exactly what they've had them do. The certificate is issued to an operator. So if that operator changes, the new certificate is needed. The bottom line is if you get a short-term rental certificate, it does not go with the property, it goes with the operator. It needs to be prominently displayed in the short-term rental. Weekly trash removal is required. Cannot rent the short-term rental for less than 2 consecutive nights. No events with tents or amplified music are allowed. No use of RVs, campers, or sleeping tents as a short-term rental or at a short-term location. Those are both prohibited. And short-term rental should meet all local and state regulations. So if you're there in Sandwich and they're doing these are the good guardrails because they're not really restricting the use of short-term rentals. They just want to give you some guidelines of what you need to do and let it go. Falmouth. Here we are at Falmouth. This is an interesting thing, and I saw this with Chatham last time. This whole idea of grinder pumps. Grinder pumps are, if you're putting in a sewer, a lot of places, if you've got a low gravity sewers and you're at a low point and you're not at the top of a hill, basically you need a grinder pump to pump the sewage up to where the sewer is. And it's not cheap. So this special legislation is going to allow the town of Falmouth to expend money to reimburse certain property owners in any future town sewer service area for costs associated with the purchase and installation of low pressure pumps on private property necessary to connect the town's sewer or wastewater system. And the reimbursement amount would be determined by the select board. I think this is nice because I can tell you where I live, there's hills, and I'm on the top of a hill, so I don't have that, but my neighbors, there's 6 or 7 of them that are going to be affected with it. So we're going to look at something here in Provincetown. It's trying to be fair because the cost of sewer hookup, no matter how much, basically for people that are middle income and missing middle, or people that have had their homes for a long time, it's expensive. And so this is a way to help defray some of the costs. The town would use the funds to purchase grinder pumps for installation on private property as part of a municipal low-pressure sewer collection system, and to reimburse property owners for a portion of the costs associated with the installation of those grinder pumps. Any such purchases or reimbursement will be subject to future town meeting appropriations. So again, they're asking for the ability to do it. It's a home rule petition, so if it passes at town meeting, needs to go to legislature. It'll go first to, I believe, Rep. Vieira, and then after it gets passed in the House, if it gets passed in the House, it goes to the state Senate, and that's State Senator Dylan Fernandez. And if that goes through, they'll have the ability to do that. They're doing updates for the ADU zoning law. I put these articles together. Basically, Article 21 seeks to amend the current business district use table to allow ADUs to ensure compliance with the Affordable Homes Act. So that's just basically putting something in a use table, as they say. Article 22 seeks to amend the current ADU bylaw to comply with the regulations issued by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. Basically, this is a language tweak. They just want to make sure they're in compliance. So they're going to do 4 things. This amendment updates to better align with the regulations. 2, adds important terms in the definition sections and includes needed clarifying language. 3, it's going to create a specific section related to the right to construct a protected use ADU, which is actually, I think, good to have it be clear and concise. And 4, it itemizes the requirements and limitations for protected use ADUs. So that's what they're doing in Falmouth. That to me is an important article, but they would call that a housekeeping one because they're updating language. Now, Nantucket, I saved it for last. They're doing it again, ladies and gentlemen. They're trying to pass a short-term rental zoning bylaw. And this town meeting was not called by the select board. They were hoping to wait till spring, but this was called by citizens, a citizens petition for the actual meeting. And both of the articles that we're going to go through here are both citizen petitions. So the bottom line is that the part of the reason why they're doing it is that, as many of you may know, Nantucket had a lawsuit, and it's called the Ward lawsuit. And basically, there was a neighbor who sued a woman named Kathy Ward, who sued her neighbors, the Grapes, and said what they're doing is not an allowed use in the historic district, and it's not a short-term rental. They're not allowed because there's no language in the zoning bylaw to allow them to do it. Well, it went through a couple iterations, and basically the final ruling of Judge Michael Vey, who's a land court judge, was she was correct. He came down on the side of the woman who said these are not legal because they're not expressly allowed. So that's on appeal right now. So this is a way to hopefully pass something so that if they have this, they can at least protect and save short-term rentals, because if not, it's going to be a huge hit to the Nantucket tourism economy. Not only will it make it difficult because I believe there's 7,100 rooms that are provided to Nantucket through short-term rentals and only 900 rooms through traditional lodging. So anyway, just that's some background. Here we are with Article 1. This is a very straightforward article. It's a short-term rental zoning bylaw. Really what it does is it restores the renting and leasing language inadvertently admitted in 2015 and clarifying its placement in the use chart, which you have to go to the use chart, by expressing allowing both long-term rentals and short-term rentals as principal uses. If this passes, it means it'll be island-wide. You're allowed to do this, except for in the commercial industrial district. This is a simple majority, which is nice because a lot of these articles that they've done before were 2/3. So the article may have won the majority, but because it didn't hit the 2/3 threshold, it never got through. They've been doing this for about 5 years. So it's very straightforward. But what happened with both of these articles is the select board did not weigh in on this article. neither for or against, they just didn't weigh in. But the Finance Committee, which is considered an important committee for this, did support it. So that's Article 1. This is the easiest, and it would correct everything, and it would make the lawsuit go away. Now, this article would also make the lawsuit go away. It's a planning board article, and what I understand by what I've read and talked to people is this is considered the compromise short-term rental article. So it's a short-term rental zoning bylaw. Again, it's a citizen's petition. It caps the number of days that a short-term rental can be used between June 15th and August 31st, which is the peak season, at 49 days. In the off-season, there are an additional 21 days for a total of 70 days in a calendar year. That's it. That's all you can rent. And short-term rentals aren't allowed in the commercial industrial district. If there are 2 short-term rentals properties on a lot, the short-term rental days for that operator or owner are still 49 in peak season and 70 for the calendar year. So if you're renting both, you don't get 49 for each and 70 for each. You get 49 and 70 for both of the properties. There is a minimum of 7-day rentals in the peak season. There had been a lot of complaints over the years about what they call churn there, and they wanted to make sure that they're weekly rentals. So basically, but hosted stays, if you're living on the lot, are exempted from this. So basically, you can rent more. You can rent more than 49 days or 70 days. How about that? So this was the Finance Committee, which supported Article 1, doesn't support this article. And the Planning Board, even though it was the head of the Planning Boards, he was one of the 2 authors of this with Act Now, which is the anti-short-term rental group. His planning board voted 3-2 in favor, so it was split, kind of split, and the select board did not take any action. This article will need 2/3 vote, so we'll see what happens. A lot of people are hoping that Article 1 gets through, gets settled, you can have short-term rentals, and then they can figure out going forward how to put some guardrails in. But that's what's happening in Nantucket, and God bless Nantucket, they're still trying to figure it out. And for either one of these articles, I think that if you're on Nantucket and you're here, please vote for Article 1. I think it's the cleanest, and I think it's the best for everybody involved. So on that note, do we have any? Oh, sorry, Martha's Vineyard town meetings. Now, I did this because I wanted to let you know that we love Martha's Vineyard and we do not forget them. But they had 3 town meetings that had no articles on their warrant that related to our policy priorities. Although I have to say the Oak Bluffs one coming up is interesting because they're trying to ban mopeds and put some guardrails on it. So that'll be interesting. But other than that, there weren't anything that was related to our public policy priorities. But 2 of them had them in September, and Oak Bluffs is on November 4th. So that's where we are with Martha's Vineyard. Questions? Anybody have questions? And stop sharing at this point. And I want to thank you all for coming and listening, and I hope it was worth your time. But are there any questions that anyone has?
I don't see anything in the chat other than the few that we had previously, Leslie.
Okay, well, anybody, as you're thinking about this and as you go through this, I know that Danielle will make this. Here it is. Oh, Cindy Lee. Let's see.
It's a thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. That's good. I appreciate that. No, what I will say to all of you that are here, this is going to be available via video, correct? Did you send it out, Danielle?
That's correct. Yep, we did record this meeting.
Great. And if for anybody who's interested, is I will know a little later, a few days after the November 17th meeting, what did get passed, and I'm happy to relay that to you, and we'll probably send something out. So thank you all for coming, and Danielle, thank you for hosting, and that's it for me right now.
Thank you, Leslie. All right, everyone, that concludes our meeting this morning. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week.
Happy
Care.
November, everybody.
Happy November. Take care. Thanks, Leslie.
Thanks, Danielle.